All right, y'all. It is time to shine. It is time to shine. I'm your host, Julian Smartrimple, King Jules here, ready to rock and roll for another very special edition of the RTJ show, the Run the Jewelz podcast show and vidcast series. If this is your first time rocking with us, welcome again to the RTJ show. You are officially inducted as one of our Smart Jewel listeners. And thank you again for tuning in, whether you're catching us live or watching the replay. And shout out to our Wisdom listeners, our Clubhouse listeners, and even if you're watching us live on Facebook or YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitter Spaces, thank you all for tuning in for today's episode. But the RTJ Lifestyle Show was created to spread inspiration to young professionals and millennial entrepreneurs who want to learn wisdom on how to shine brighter in their careers or their businesses. And so if you are a millennial, if you are a Gen Zer, or even if you're someone that's trying to hear from young and savvy, dynamic kings and queens, millennial and Gen Zers, that our team has located, and they've been able to allow us to have the honor of interviewing them, definitely click the link that's in the comments section. If you even want to be a potential VIP guest, and if you have a testimony, and if you are not shy, and if you have what it takes to drop the jewels with our audience, definitely click the link that we're putting in the comments section right now. Because we want to hear what jewels you may have to run for our audience this week. And so shout out again to all of our listeners for rocking with us. Definitely like and subscribe. You can follow and subscribe to our podcast, the Run the Jewelz podcast, on all podcast listening or music streaming platforms. And we appreciate you again rocking with us this afternoon. Matter of fact, you listen to us on Wisdom. If you are on Wisdom, we want you to feel free to come onto the stage. If at any time you have any questions for my very special guests, you can come automatically onto the stage. You're getting behind the scenes access to our very special guest today, and we'll be able to have her answer the questions to the best of her abilities. But those are all of my announcements, housekeeping. For today's episode, we are diving into a very powerful and also important subject: how to become debt-free and retired in your 30s. That's again, how to become debt-free and retired in your 30s. For anyone who's been tracking with us, you know we focus on three core areas for the RTJ show. We focus on personal development first, financial freedom second, and then health and wellness third. And so those are the three core areas that we touch on for lifestyle changes, and also to have the life that you were called to live as a bright, shining jewel that you are. And so I'm about to get ready to bring on my very special VIP guest. I actually came across, I forgot this queen's episode that she was doing on another podcast episode on YouTube. Shout out to YouTube. And I believe it was Bigger Pockets Money, or Bigger Pockets Money podcast. And we literally were tracking our team and I with other podcasts that are doing their thing and having live stream podcasts on YouTube. And her episode stood out a lot to our team. She literally was telling her testimony on how she became debt free, and also even was able to retire through the proper financial freedom strategies, and even through acquiring multiple assets. And so I'm going to let her explain her journey with you all, to let you know that you can be debt free in your 30s, and you also could even retire, the R word that we are sometimes afraid of hearing unless we're in our 60s and up. But she's going to be talking to you about her journey, and also how she was able to put her money where her mouth is, literally, and to become debt and financially free. And so without further ado, let me introduce you to, she goes by the name of Antoinette, but I'll let you see exactly who she is and what she has to share with us. How are you doing, Antoinette?
Good, Jules. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming on and running the jewels with us today. But what we usually have our guests tell us a little bit about themselves is, tell us, Antoinette, where you're originally from. Also, let us know where you're tracking with us this morning, and why is this an important subject to you? to talk
Okay.
about.
I am Antoinette Munroe, as he said, born and raised in Miami, Florida, but currently living in Orlando, Florida. Why financial freedom is important to me? Because freedom is important. Freedom of choice, freedom of time, freedom of peace of mind.
Yeah, that's important right there, you all. We have to have free mindsets. And shout out again to you, Antoinette. I didn't even know you were in Florida. Excuse me, in Florida. Shout out to Florida. I have family in West Palm, Orlando, and Miami. Big up to all the Floridians out there. But I know it's hot. I'm in Atlanta. I'm not too far above where y'all are at. So I know everyone goes to Florida for this time of year, especially as school is winding down. And so, like, tell us, like, how did you even, Antoinette, get into wanting to learn about financial education and also wanting to learn about how to become financially free? Tell us about your story.
Okay. So I'll say that most people that come from, let's say, the hood, right? You see a lot of bad examples of what not to do. I think for me, I learned very well from examples. So although my parents couldn't teach me much about kind of financial literacy, they gave me really good examples of things that I should seek to avoid in order to live in a different circumstance than I grew up in. So it was that I learned from my environment, watching the adults around me kind of make the mistakes that people fall into with credit usage, living beyond their means. And so for me, from a child, it was always, I want my life to be different than the way I grew up. So I was always focused on kind of saving my money, not being irresponsible with credit, and living within my means because I wanted to have a different life.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's all about literally knowing what you want. Like Antoinette is pointing out to you all, you have to know what you want early on in life, especially if you want to live a certain lifestyle, which is what we cover here on the RTJ show. And like having that let's just say that plan, having that vision from early on in life, like how was that affecting your circle of friends, your circle of family members? Were they anti that vision? Did they give you a hard time? Were they trying to even potentially sabotage like that vision that you had for yourself earlier on in life? Like, tell us about how did your circle of influence become affected or it possibly infected by your vision that you had?
I think when I was young, like school age, my family would be the only ones aware. And it was more so, that's just Antoinette. That's how she is. I didn't eat my candy. I sold my candy. And then I would loan things to my siblings and keep a little notebook of who I lended money to make sure I got it back on time. And for them, it was just, I've always been like that. That's just how she is. So they were actually supportive, right? If I had an idea of something I wanted to sell, they would take me to the store to buy those items, front me that money so that I could buy them and start selling candy, fireworks, whatever it was. So I'll say my family environment, they just let me be me and do me. If I had an idea, they supported that. Um, I don't think my friends noticed anything different about me until college when, when you're drinking, when you're going out and hanging out. I didn't drink. I didn't drink at a club and I didn't drink at a restaurant because I didn't want to waste the money on liquid. I would always say I didn't have any money. And I realized a couple years into college, my same set of friends, they realized that when I said I didn't have money, it meant I didn't have money in my discretionary spending checking account. But they knew I had been stashing and saving all of my net checks. And even then, it was just, side jokes. Oh, you're cheap, or don't ask her for no money. She's not going to give you any. But I never felt like there was pressure to spend more or do more. Naturally, when you're around people using money differently, there's always going to be the chance that that could influence you. So either my friends didn't pressure me or I didn't care about how they felt or what they said and didn't allow them to pressure me. I'm not sure which one it was.
Yeah, those friends. I know I went to HBCU, shout out to Hampton University, and I also went to PWI here in Georgia, Kennesaw State University. And so I know how friends can literally be having you spend your refund checks on crazy things, trying to ball out, getting rims, clothes, trips, whatever the case may be, versus, again, putting it back into your financial plan, or potentially paying off your student loans early. And so I know that that's something that a lot of millennials and Gen Zers have struggled with, especially when it came to their friend circles influencing their spending habits. And so let's stay with that point right there too. And if you have any questions for my very special guest, Miss Antoinette, who is talking about how to become debt-free and retired in your 30s, feel free to come onto the stage and ask any questions of her at any time of today's episode. And shout out again to all of our wisdom listeners who are tuning in. And so, Antoinette, I also wanted to know when it came to your endeavors to purchase assets, like how did you decide from your journey in literally purchasing assets earlier on in your 20s, like what mentorship, what coaching, what people may you have patterned your formula for purchasing assets after? Like, how did you come about purchasing that in your 20s?
I think if you start with being interested in money young, understanding the value of the dollar, the value of saving, and the value of like making a decision and committing to that, you think along those lines throughout, life. I purchased my first property at 19. I wish I could say I knew where that idea came from, but for me, I just felt like I was throwing away money paying rent. I'm living in Tallahassee in a college student-centered apartment. There are 3 of us. They're renting each bedroom out individually, and when you do the math, they're making a killing. So after 2 years of that, I was just like, I could keep this money in my pocket and rent out my own room. And so that's what I went after. I wish I could say there was something that told me to do that other than just like, I'm giving my money away every month to someone else. How do I keep my money for myself? So I found a townhouse to buy in Tallahassee with the intent to like rent out a room the same way the apartment complex I was living in was doing. So you can be in any environment and just learn from what's happening around you if you're paying attention. Now, if you're in the club, if you party and you're doing all this stuff, you can be quite distracted and not seeing what's happening around you. But I wasn't really doing any of that. So all I could do was like pay attention. And I'd say above anything else, pay attention to what's happening around you. There are millions of examples, good or bad. But the more time you spend watching, the more information you can absorb.
Yeah. And it's literally down to just what you are saying, Antoinette. You made sacrifices early on, which a lot of people are afraid or possibly don't know the process or the formula, how to literally put aside their needs or their wants, potentially that may not even be needs earlier on in life, so that they can have long-term satisfaction and put aside those short-term gratifications. And that's a big step when it comes to our audience members and even those who are listening, in literally putting sacrifices in early on in life so that you can enjoy the fruit of your sacrifices and your labor later on. And so we're going to let you get a quick break, Antoinette, while we honor our VIP sponsor for today's episode. Each and every episode, we highlight a VIP sponsor or a community partner that we have partnered with and that has sown into our organization here for the Smart Jewels Network, which powers the Run the Jewelz podcast show. And so let's take a look and see who our VIP sponsor is for today's episode, you all. Let's take a look. again, shout out to our VIP sponsor for today's episode. Comes from none other than Orgain Organic Protein. If you are into plant-based protein, or even if you are a vegetarian or vegan, or if you're just trying to have a cleaner substitute for your protein that you take for your fitness or your muscle training, you can enter SMART SMART JEWELZ. That's SMART SMART JEWELZ at checkout in order to literally receive, I believe it's a 30% off discount just from being one of our Smart Jewel listeners for today's episode. And so you will want to click the link that we have in the comment section below, or even go to our RTJ podcast flow code page to be able to receive a discount. They have awesome pea protein. They have awesome plant-based ingredients that they put in their protein. We even use it with our team. And so shout out to Orgain Organic Protein. And you can see the link to receive your 30% off discount today by entering SMART JEWELZ. But back to you, Antoinette. We definitely wanted to stay with that point when it came to your real estate journey. I know that people that we talk to who are entrepreneurs like yourself, myself, and others always say that they're either purchasing investments, online investments in order to acquire real estate, or they're either purchasing online investments to acquire land and also real estate. So, like, what got you into your real estate journey earlier on? And then also tell us, how did you start using real estate in order to pay off your debts and even to acquire financial freedom?
Okay. So like I said, I didn't want to throw money away behind rent. I wanted to keep money, make a little money. So that's how the first property happened. It still wasn't in the mind frame of I'm going to be a real estate investor. It was always about what is the smartest money decision for me to make where I am at the time. And so that's how that happened. Once I left college and started working, my sole focus was making smart money decisions. So I was focused on building out a good budget system. I call it my budget ABCs, making sure my budget was automated, balanced each week. And then I remained consistent with that, and I had my controls set. So that was my focus, just being smart with money and being debt-free, priority number one. So I spent the first 2 years out of college focusing on repaying the debt that I came out of college with, because I knew being debt-free would change the trajectory of my life. Coming from a household where we had a lot of debt, where I watched my parents go through bankruptcy, I didn't want that for me. So again, I knew my why, right? Like, I wanted to live a different life than what I had been exposed to. And I knew that money and money management was going to be at the center of making that difference. So focusing on my budget, paying off all my debt the first 2 years was the start of it all. Wasn't thinking about real estate at all. But because I did that, because I set that foundation for myself with a focus on debt repayment the first 2 years, and then aggressively saving the third year, I was now in a position to go out and purchase property once that idea came back to the forefront.
Yeah. And that's good right there, because even when it comes to, let's say, credit, has the credit when you first were starting up affected your purchase ability? Like, we talk about credit education a lot here on the RTJ show. Like, how did you go about your credit? Did you pay off all or as much of your loans as possible before wanting to go and acquire your first property? Did you finesse the system and go through hard money lenders, or like what was the process that you used to get your credit?
I took the slow and boring route. I paid everything off. I was disciplined and focused. In that first 2 years, every single debt I had, I paid off. In doing that results in excellent credit. So mind you, prior to, I still wasn't like collecting credit cards or spending. It was really just student loans I had to address. I had always been very mindful about my credit, not signing up for those credit card offers on the college campus. You know, they trade off a piece of your life for a slice of pizza. I didn't do any of those things. So it was always important to me to like maintain perfect credit, never miss a monthly payment, do everything on time. So by the time I paid off my student loans, I already had an excellent credit history, and that was something I maintained and continued to maintain.
Yeah, they always offer the T-shirt and also the slice of pizza at all of the HBC.
It ain't worth it.
And even the PWIs. I saw a couple credit or bank lenders that would be at some of the events with the little table and the booth on campus. So yeah, it's always literally them trying to catch you while you are young and even ignorant or uneducated in financial education. And that's
And I think we have to do a better job at making people aware of the traps, right? Like, you don't need the free pizza, or like set up a fake name, fake social that you're going to use consistently and you know by heart to get your free pizza. But making people aware of the traps that are there. Even going into college, the way I chose my college was so that I would have the minimal amount of student loans. I chose a school that offered the most scholarships. I did everything I could to make sure I had financial aid available to me. So you kind of got to start thinking about this stuff by the time you're in high school, because there are nothing but minefields waiting for you the moment you leave your parents' house.
Yeah, especially for people that look like myself and you. They're out here gunning to see how they can literally wrap you in to a life filled with debt. And that's really what we wanted to even transition to. Like, how have you seen, let's say, the heightened awareness or even the increase of higher knowledge when it comes to financial education increase with people that you're connected to, whether it's friends who are watching you from the beginning and seeing like the sacrifices that you were making, and then seeing the process of you purchasing and acquiring assets in order to basically stick to your original plan of being financially debt free? Like, how has that affected the people that have seen you and that are literally watching your journey? Have they tried to plug into you? Have they wanted to assist you on your journey, or have they even been able to be your underlings or your understudies or potentially disciples even to learn from your craft? Like, how have you influenced some of the people in your circle still?
It's a mixed bag. I think the first thing you would assume is that the people closest to you would be like doing the same thing because they get direct to the source and they, it's a shortcut, easy button, they could do it. But it seems like the people closest to me, they watched me do this and, they still may not be interested or not be on that path, and very much still following the traditional path of, I like my job, I'm going to work this until retirement and just live the best life I can live with the salary that I make. And it really is to each its own. Proximity kind of doesn't make, I don't know, progress per se. But then there'll be people that I'll meet randomly, have one conversation with them, and then 2 weeks later they went out and bought a house. Or a client that will want me to work with them as a realtor to help them find a house hack. My sister, rather than spending, she started investing more. So here and there, you'll see influences, but it all takes shape differently for each person. And it has to fit with like what they're comfortable with, what their goals are, and the life that they want to live for themselves. So I wish I could just make a bunch of carbon copies of me out here. But honestly, everybody's on their own journey.
Yeah, and that's so important, especially for those who are listening. Shout out to our wisdom listeners, that everybody does have to make a decision for their own life and what they want to live and how they would choose to live. And so just like the old saying goes, you can't make folks drink the water, you could only lead them to it. And so it's like you have to get down how you feel. Your lifestyle should be able to be led. And that goes into a great segue when it comes to like your brand. Like, how did you start literally seeing that you are an influential voice, especially as being a Black queen, being able to speak on behalf of things that are very taboo in our culture, to talk about financial freedom and also financial education? We know that the brothers Earn Your Leisure and a few other select individuals that I've followed have really made it part of their ministry, a part of their purpose to educate our community that have people look like myself and yourself. Like, how did you get the inspiration to start your own brand and even to not hold on to all of that wisdom and all of the jewels, as we like to call it, that you learned along the way, but when you started spreading that wisdom and spreading those jewels to others?
I would love to say it was my idea. I was just so smart that I was like, okay, I've done this. Let me tell everybody. But really, I was just living my life, doing what I thought was best for me. And it was running into people that would find out about it and start asking for more information. And really, it was Arlene Blake with Women on the Rise here in Orlando, Florida. I met her at a dinner. She found out about what I was doing and asked me to come and speak to her women's group. And I think that was the beginning. I had never considered any of this. It wasn't really an interest. I was just living. So partnering with Women on the Rise, I've done 3 events for them. And then from there, the feedback was always share more, share more. So it really, this wasn't led by me. It was more encouraged by the people around me pushing for that. I'm not a natural sharer. So this is the beginning of me trying to be intentional about sharing, because I was just like, I'm living my life. When you wake up every day, you eat your cereal, you do whatever you do, and you're just living your life. You don't think about it as something that everybody needs to know about. So yeah, I'll give Arlene all the credit for that. She was the first person to push me to share, and she consistently pushes me, and every time it's a new challenge. So I think this year has been the focus for my partner and I to be more intentional about sharing and craft a brand and message.
Shout out to Sister and Queen Arlene. I know that's one of my favorite aunties' names. Shout out to all the Arlenes that are out there. She actually lives in Orlando too. But definitely we always have to pay homage to those that put the battery in our back and those who literally push us forward to step outside of our comfort zone and even to conquer certain fears, which leads to our next section that we're pivoting into. Like, what fears, Antoinette, did you potentially have originally when it came to striking out on a new journey of financial debt freedom? And even we want to talk as we wind down shortly about how did you even get into retiring and thinking about retiring early in your 30s. But like, what fears did you first experience when you were starting your journey? And like, how did you combat those fears earlier on?
I think the very first fear that was the catalyst for all of it was the fear of not having money I needed, not having my lights on, right? Not having my water on, not being able to eat. All the things that I experienced growing up, those were my fears. I didn't want that. So I think that was kind of the driving force. How do I change this pattern? How do I do something different so that my life experience can be different? And that's with the debt freedom budgeting. All of that was driven by, I just need to make sure that I can eat and I have a place to live and I never have to, kind of experience what I grew up with at my own hand. Then secondly, before investing in real estate, of course, there are going to be fears because that's very risky. I named my fear. My worst case scenario would be having to go back home. I know when I got my first job offer, I felt like I made it. Like, I've made it out. I'm good from here on. So then that was the new fear, having to digress and go back. But ultimately, if worst case scenario was kind of going back home, living with my parents, if I squandered it all, I knew that I'd made it out before and I could make it out again. So it wasn't really a fear to hold on to because I had already conquered it.
That's a major jewel right there, Queen, is when it comes to literally you hit a very taboo subject that's in the Black community, that we literally talk about controversial topics like that. Like, why do you think a lot of Black Americans, not people across the diaspora, why do you think they shun the strategy of going back to live with mom, dad, auntie, uncle, grandparents, even, in order to save money up to purchase assets or let alone to pay down their debts? Like, why do you think in our community, like, that's more of a anti-strategy in order to acquire wealth or even to pay off debt faster? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think our parents with very good intentions wanted to raise children to be independent and go out on their own. And I think if you look at whatever financial position your parents were coming from, they needed you to do that because you were expensive and they were probably struggling to, to raise you. So we were always pushed to go out and make it on our own. One, because our parents need to take a breath. And two, because, right? Like if you can't survive on your own, especially in an environment that's not designed for you, then you're screwed. And I think there's that pride of, I've done it right. My child is out. They graduated. They live on their own. That was your parents' dream and goal. As the person with more opportunity, you're not in your parents' time. You can have different dreams and goals, and it can be greater than just, I left and I live on my own. I'm independent. I have my own space. Like, dream bigger than that. And those larger dreams may require a different strategy. For me, going back home was always a part of the strategy. That third year, in order to save a year's salary, the only way I could do that was to go back home with my parents. That was the only way I was going to have low enough expenses to save $50,000. So that was a part of it. When I got ready to buy the second property here in Orlando, although I had the money on hand, I knew I wanted to do an extensive renovation on the property. And in the meantime, if money is going in renovation, I don't need to be paying rent. So my boyfriend and I, we went to live with his mom. When we decided to buy our third property, the one we currently live in, it was much more expensive than anything we had purchased before. It required a larger down payment. Where we go? Back to his mama's house to save more for that down payment. So I'm thankful for my parents for being there to be able to support, but also the mentality has to change, right? Like, if you have a bigger dream, it requires a different sacrifice, a different strategy, a different path. Your parents' dream was for you to grow up and be independent. Okay, you've done that. Now what else can you do? So it was never, I guess, let go of pride. I didn't have pride. I didn't have one thing to stick to. It was like, what do I need right now for the future that I'm trying to build for myself? Okay, if that's the next best step, that's what we're going to do.
You're speaking a whole bunch of jewels right there, Queen. Shout out to, I forgot to tell you, my family is West Caribbean. So we're from Trinidad and Tobago by way of like West Africa. And literally, when it comes to one of the strategies that I see overseas, because even traveling to Africa, Asia, every other community group literally follows that same strategy, where whether they're living with their parents until they're married and until they basically are able to find their spouse or their loved one so that the family unit is strong, or number two, like you said, even potentially when they're married, they go back to live with the family so that they have, for one, free childcare, free babysitting, and then potentially even having the base that is strong to help raise the children when you are a new parent or even potentially a newly married couple. And so only here in the USA does that mindset of, especially in our community, shout out to all of the white brethren and the Asian brethren, and even the Hispanic and Latino and Latina brethren, they go back and live with their parents. Like a lot of my friends, they're in their 20s and 30s. They're like, I don't care what people are talking about. I'm over here acquiring assets. I'm paying down debt. I'm getting my credit right. But it's just something about our community. They want to ride in the Benz, the C-Class or the S-Class, and literally be having 10 roommates in a house, or be literally living in the hood, or in literally an apartment complex with no assets and no investments. And so it's just like the mentality that we definitely wanted to see from your perspective. And then as we get ready to wind down shortly, if you have any questions for Antoinette, this is your final call to ask if you want to come on the stage. But Antoinette, talk about retirement. Like, how did you start the conversation of wanting to retire early? Did you follow the FIRE method approach and the strategy of having your FIRE number that you wanted to know what it is so that you can retire at a certain age or at this amount of your life? Like, talk to us about how did you get into the retirement conversation early on?
I think that probably came from late night Google searches of, I hate my job. What are my options? Or I want to quit. What else can I do? And probably somewhere along those lines, I did stumble upon the FIRE movement, which is Financial Independence, Retire Early. So I started along those lines. I probably didn't delve into kind of the investing or having a FIRE number yet. It was more so about, okay, how do I set the stage so that I can retire someday and be okay. And at that time, I was still thinking, regular retirement age. So I started with saving in a 401k and meeting my match, and then increasing by a certain percentage every year, then starting a Roth IRA. I think halfway through that, like a couple years into the job, where I'm really like, okay, I can't see this for the rest of my life. How do I get out? What do I need to do to be able to not have to go to work every day? And for me, it was boiled down to one thing. Why do people go to work every day? To pay their bills. What is the biggest bill you have? Your living expense. So the unlock for me was, if I could eliminate my living expense, then I could significantly reduce my reliance or need of income and open up flexibility to be able to change careers or not work altogether. So it started from basic fire. Let me put myself in a position to be able to retire and be okay in retirement, to how do I accelerate that as quickly as possible? Because I want it to be free right now. I've deferred gratification enough in everything I had been doing up until that point. I was not going to defer living fully till age 65. So then retiring immediately became the goal for me. And through that, I chose a different path to fire. And my version is financial independence through real estate investing, primarily with my first focus being on making sure that where I lived was being paid for or subsidized by something else or completely free. Because if my biggest bill is gone, then my need for income completely changes.
Ooh, that's a whole ton of jewels right there that Antoinette is dropping on you all. I know our team too, Antoinette, we follow the baby step method that Dave Ramsey and his team made popular. He didn't create it, but they made it popular. And when it came to literally following the baby steps, that is also another great strategy for those who are also trying to get started with the process and the formula of getting out of debt. But the fire method and also the fire strategy is what we are progressing to for our clients and also for our team, because it literally lets you know the basics of how much you need to retire, what steps that you're going to take to get there. And it allows it to look more believable and attainable for people in their 30s and also even in their 20s or in their 40s or 50s even, before they get to retirement age, that it also can be done for you, but you have to know the steps. And so, like, as we get ready to wind down shortly, like, what suggestions would you recommend for people that are looking to mix their portfolio so that they can get closer to their fire number or even get closer to their debt freedom number? Like, what type of suggestions do you make for people that are coming to you that want to diversify their portfolio of assets?
Okay. And just quickly to your point before, like, there are plenty of people out there with information. You have your Dave Ramsey. Back in my day, it was Clark Howard, Susie Orman. Those things work, but they're not one size fits all. So I challenge you to kind of become a researcher and develop your own process. My budget system, all of those things, were learning about the different options and creating something that I could realistically stick to and that would be sustainable for me long term. Even with the fire number, I don't calculate the fire number for what I need in retirement. I focused on my expenses and keeping those low and knowing my expense number. And if my expenses are $24,000 a year, then I know I need to generate passive income of that amount to meet that. That allows me to retire now, where when you focus on the fire number, you're kind of still in this kind of projected timeline that takes a lot longer because you're focused on saving enough to get there versus generating income now that can replace your salaried income. So I'll say that's important. What was the second part of your question?
Oh no, just like in reference to the mixed portfolio, like do you recommend a certain percentage of real estate versus online investments versus potential annuities, life insurance, etc.? Like, what are some
I'll
of
tell you what I did. When I was employed, I put money in my 401k. I made sure to meet my company's matched and I saved. Once I understood the power of passive income, I focused 100% on real estate and accumulating assets that generated income. That became the primary focus. I could save to hit a number, but I could also make sure I had a certain amount coming in each month, taking that route. Now that I've accumulated a couple assets that are generating income, I'm now looking into life insurance policies. And I think each of these phases, they kind of shift as you make more income or have access to more capital, then the strategy that you use would be different. So now that there's a little more money coming from real estate or other business ventures, now I look at life insurance policies and how to use that tool. My focus for retirement accounts, I started as these are the holy grail, but as I became an investor, it really shifted from that to what can I have that I can control now. So it's more businesses, real estate, and other partnerships.
Yeah, that's critical because our mindset has even changed in talking to some of our financial advisors with our team that, yeah, you got to have the bigger picture when it comes to life insurance, when it comes to those who are getting closer to retirement age for long-term care planning, and even emergency savings, emergency funding, having literally your estate planning taken care of. That's like the higher level conversation that
Mm-hmm.
Antoinette is getting at, because you can have all that money, but if you don't know where to assign it in the case of death, which death is going to come for all of us at one time or another, then what's the point of having all of these assets and all of these investments acquired? And so that goes into like our last point too, Antoinette. Like how has your mind transitioned now when it comes to estate planning? We talk a lot about that pre-COVID and also post-COVID, that life is very short, and literally a lot of family members, a lot of friends, they may think they're going to live forever, but literally they have to really have that awakening to know that, why am I not estate planning? Why am I not having the conversation with my parents to see if they have life insurance policies, or to see if they're able to outpace inflation in retirement? Like talk about the estate planning side, and how have you and even your partner, how have y'all come together to discuss those type of conversations that are hard pill conversations to have?
Yeah. So the first step was getting life insurance policies for us. We don't have any kids. So step one was, should something happen to one of us, the other person needs to be okay. The second was setting up a will and trust so that should something happen to one of us, we know exactly what's going to happen with the properties, who has control over it, and what should be done. And that's a conversation I have with my partner, but also with my family as well. Because we're unmarried, you'll find that my family would have first access. So I have to make sure I have the proper legal documents in place so that what I want to happen with my assets will happen, and then communicating that to my family so they're aware as well. But also, I'm talking to my parents now about kind of doing the same while they're still somewhat young enough to engage in these conversations. How do I take what I've learned and get them set up? We've gotten a medical directive set up for my mom. We're working on a will as well, trying to help them sort through the property they have now and make those decisions now versus leaving it to the family to fight over should something happen. So I'll say it all starts with the conversation, but also educating yourself about what the options are, and thinking about what you want to happen. I don't have any children, and I always say, I'm going to be dead. I'm not going to know what's going on. But in the meantime, I at least have the will set up, have the life insurance set up so that there isn't a fight when I do leave.
Yeah, and it's a big conversation. I talk amongst all the kings and queens in my circle that you can't outpace or outrun death, because literally people are passing away in their teens, their 20s, their 30s nowadays. It's not like our parents and grandparents generation. And so, like, what are you going to have happen to your potential assets, or even to your legacy when you do transition on? And so it's like those estate planning conversations are critical to have with your parents, with your loved ones, even with your spouse, with your partners. I know, despite what people think about Susie and also Dave Ramsey, shout out to Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey. Like, I learned the importance of that through those two individuals, a white woman and also a white man. And literally, like, you can have all the Grant Cardones and individuals that are capping, saying that you need to acquire real estate, you need to acquire wealth. But if you don't know what to do or where that wealth is going in your absence, then literally you're just you're just going after the wind and shooting after the wind when you're not hitting any targets because it's not able to be transferred down to future generations. And so, like, talk to us as we get ready to have you give us your final jewel really quick. Is what is your big picture vision? Do you see like this starting into a movement for what you started with your brand and also with your business? Like, do you see the shift taking place with our community of Black and brown people really diving into financial education? What do you see as the vision moving forward?
It's evolving, right? Like I didn't have a vision. The vision was mostly self-centered and for myself. I think I'm creating a vision now to see how can I include others beyond just my friends and family, which was, my, first step focus. Now, what can I give back to the community as a whole? What is it that they need? um, and what part can I play in that? So I'm actually still trying to develop that vision. And I'll say what I've come up with so far is just beginning to share. So doing these podcasts is putting the information out there, answering whatever questions I get. That's kind of level one. I'll say the next thing we'll probably end up focusing on this year is trying to put it all on paper, right? Like, how do I create a course that outlines everything I did to become debt free and retired by 36? And then put that out there for somebody else to follow that or tweak it and create their own system. So attending conferences, right? I'm Invest Fest with Earn Your Leisure, supporting other content creators that are out there sharing information. How can I come and give to that space with just presence or even speaking if possible? So it's still under development for me, but I'm hoping to gain more clarity around that as I go through these different experiences with the podcast and attending these conferences.
Well, no, you dropping a ton of jewels right there, Queen. A lot of individuals don't even think about the end game, as we like to call it, for those chess players that are out here. And so we have to really start thinking about that nowadays because the time is moving faster. Things are happening literally at the drop of a hat. And so we got to start thinking about the real vision, what we want to accomplish while we're here so our legacy can be cemented. But for those who are listening and who are steady listeners, we always allow our guests to leave a final jewel of wisdom with you all. Antoinette, we've talked about your journey into getting your financial strategies in place earlier on in your 20s to become debt free. We've talked about the strategies that you used in order to acquire real estate as your major asset, along with online investments to be able to retire in your 30s. What would be the main final jewel that you would want to leave with audience members that may be like, Antoinette, I want to do that too, but literally I'm not ready to sacrifice my whole life in my 20s. I'm trying to turn up. I'm trying to party. I'm trying to cruise. I'm trying to do this, that, and the third, go to weddings after weddings. Like, talk to them. What would be a final jewel of wisdom that you can leave with those audience members this evening?
I'll leave them with my favorite quote by Barack Obama. Our destiny is written by us, not for us. That is to say, if you decide the life that you want to live, there is nothing that can stop you from creating that life. And every choice that you make should ladder up to that end goal that you've identified for yourself. So if you are the author of your story, if you are in control of your outcome, to live your life daily with no objective, with no end game, with no goal is a waste, right? So define what it is that you want out of life. Imagine, dream up, picture exactly what that looks like, and then back into a plan that allows you to achieve it.
I love it. I love it. That's an awesome financial and final jewel to leave with those who are listening. And Antoinette, how can people stay in touch with you if they want to tap in or connect to your services, even if they want to follow you on social? What are some ways that people can stay connected to you after today?
You can follow us currently at Fearless and Free FI on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, but primarily Instagram is where we're putting things out. And then also fearlessandfreefi.com. You can go there to sign up for the mailing list, to look at the courses we're putting together that are coming soon. And I generally respond to every message that I get on Insta. So I'm easy to reach.
Absolutely. Y'all shout out to Instagram too. I know that's how I followed up with Antoinette literally to have this interview today. And so shout out to IG connecting like-minded entrepreneurs and also young professionals. And so Antoinette, we're going to say a quick prayer over you as we get ready to wind down for today's episode. For those who are listening, if you've been blessed by any of the information and jewels that Antoinette has dropped on you and myself and others today, feel free to sow a seed with us. No seed is too small or too large. We have it pinned in the comment section below how you can partner with us via our Patreon account, or you can cash app us at $SMART, SMART, JEWELZ to become a Smart Jewels supporter, like the names that you see at the bottom of the screen who have partnered with us just for this season for you all. We've been able to acquire new equipment, been able to pay for this platform that we use, StreamYard. Shout out to StreamYard, which is what we're using tonight for today's episode. But thank you all for subscribing and also supporting us on our journey. But Antoinette, I'm going to say a quick prayer over you and then allow you to enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you again for taking the time out to share your jewels of wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Father God, I just want to thank you for Antoinette being able to come on our show and share her jewels of wisdom with those who may just be thinking that financial freedom or even being financially debt-free is at their fingertips and also can be accomplished. We thank you for her business. We thank you for her and her partner's ministry that they are showing others in their 30s, in their 20s, or even those who are above the millennial age bracket, that if they set a plan in motion early, if they partner up with those who are like-minded, and even if they do not give up or even do not set aside their initial plan and their initial goals, that it can be accomplished for us and also for them too. And so we thank you, Father, for what you are doing in her life. We pray that you will continue to guide her throughout this journey, align her with like-minded partnerships, and increase her territory, increase her influence, not just here in the U.S. or even in the South, but even globally, Father God. We speak global blessings and also global connections, global partnerships for her future and also for her and her partner's destiny. We love you, Father God. I praise you and I give you thanks and glory and honor for today's episode. And it's in Yeshua HaMashiach, the Christ Jesus name, I pray. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Antoinette, for being a part of the show. For those who are listening, make sure you go and follow Antoinette and go and sow into their program and also their ministry. And Antoinette, you enjoy the rest of your day, sis. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, peace.
Good one. Bye.
All right, y'all. I'm going to give some final jewels for thought. Again, if you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to literally go and share this information with someone that needs it. There's tons of people that were able to, I'm sure, have their heightened sense of awareness increased when it came to why you should be financially debt-free and also why you need to have a plan to be financially free so that you can do what you are called to do, which is your purpose. I'm tired of hearing people make excuses why they made poor decisions in their 20s and 30s or even in their teens as to why they can't retire, why they can't switch jobs, why they can't leave corporate America. It's all excuses. It's all white noise, because if you have a plan, if you have a mentor, if you have a coach like Antoinette, like her business, like her program, even what we always profess with our program, where we teach financial peace university classes and also our own financial courses for Smart Jewelz Enterprises, you have no excuse not to, again, put that plan in motion to be debt-free and to also live the life that you were called to live. And so if you're just joining with us, if you want to get started on your podcast, your live stream show, you can definitely visit www.smart, SMART, JEWELZ, enterprises.org to get started on your podcast today. And also stay connected with us. You can follow us at Smart Life Jewels on IG. That's Smart Life, JEWELZ. Or you can follow myself at King Jewels Speaks on IG, or visit the organization and entity that powers the RTJ show, smartjewelsenterprises.org, in order to stay connected with us and in order to follow our journey as we continue to move forward with season 4. But I'm going to share some updates that we have for the show before we let you all go. Thank you again, Wisdom listeners, for tuning in. But let's see how we're going to end season 4 strong. Myself and our team, we're speaking at the upcoming Black Pod Festival, which happens May 28th and 29th this year. Shout out to Black Pod Collective. And I'll be speaking on how to repurpose your podcast for creative marketing. There's still time to join. If you're here in the ATL, visit blackblkpodfestival.com. That's blackblkpodfestival.com. And then I'm also going to be speaking at the Points of Light conference that is in Orlando, Florida on July 13th through the 15th. And so shout out to Points of Light that we have partnered with at least 3 times now to be a part of their conference that I believe is an internationally streamed conference. It's the biggest conference for public awareness and also community development. And so social awareness too. And so shout out to Points of Light. But you already heard my PSA. You can reach new audiences by literally tapping in with our team of podcast hosts, producers, and even podcast creators and editors. And so let's talk. The secret to growth is hiding right in front of you. If you want to receive any of the services that you see on the screen in order to have your podcast created or enhanced and taken to the next level to monetize your podcast, etc., visit www.smartjewelsenterprises.org. Also, stay tuned, you all. We are back for next season, transitioning the podcast to Smart Travel Jewels. And so if you are not tuned in to our 200th episode, go back and watch the replay of that because we are transitioning to a travel and lifestyle podcast for next season. I'm excited. Our team and I were going on the road. We just came back from El Salvador. We just came back from New Orleans, Miami. We're looking to go to Asia later this year. And so we're taking this show mobile and remote on the road, you all. And so if you're even interested in learning how to have a mobile and remote traveling podcast, definitely track with us at www.smartjewelsenterprises.org to sign up for a free discovery session with one of our representatives. We just launched some new merch, you all, for our 200th episode. And so we're not playing. We monetizing the podcast each and every season from sponsors, from donors to now merch and even to affiliate partnerships. And so you can go to our website that is on our page that's listed in the comment section below, our flow code page, to purchase any of our Smart Jewelz Network new merch that we just launched for our 200th episode this month. And so we are locked and loaded, you all, for season 4 finale as we wind down for season 4. Shout out to all of our Smart Jewel listeners who have been a part of our ministry, been a part of our movement since season 1. We've been putting in the work.